Do your clients understand everything that you do for them, or all that you could do? If you're like most advisors, that answer is probably no, not even close. So today we're going to be talking about ways you can communicate all of your services that you provide to your clients so that your value is increased in their eyes and you can justify your fees that they pay you. So let's go ahead and kick things off with a question for you guys. Do you think your clients on average have a thorough understanding of all the services you provide? Let us know in the comments wherever you are watching. So this is part 5 of the Building a Better Advisory Business series. If you would like to add the next 2 sessions to your calendar, you can go ahead and go to horsesmouth.com/series to get those on your calendar there. And also, if you missed any of the past sessions, you can go ahead and get caught up by going to horsesmouth.com/betterbiz and finding the replays there. Now, this series is part of the build-up to Deborah Taylor's July 19th to the 22nd practice management workshop, which will be happening virtually. It's the new normal practice management workshop where she's going to be going crazy in depth about all of the systems, the practices, and techniques that you can put into place to take your business to the next level. And she provides, worksheets, checklists, really goes deep. So if you can spare the time, I highly recommend it. It's probably one of our workshops that people have raved about the most. So you can go to horsesmouth.com/new normal to find just more information about the workshop, or to go ahead and sign up. And with that through, I'm going to go ahead and kick things over to Horses Mouth Editor-in-Chief Sean Bailey and the woman herself, Deborah Taylor. Over to you guys.
Thanks, Doug. Morning, everybody. Welcome, Debbie. So, Debbie, this is, it's an interesting topic, this whole thing of, to me, I view, this question of value proposition is kind of linked to the range of services that advisors provide for their clients. 30 years ago, people had their stockbroker, and it was really just about, placing trades and maybe calling up your client when you knew there was going to be a good stock offering or whatever the case may be. And of course, since the late 70s, early 80s, the whole financial world has exploded. We've had the financialization of the US economy, where I think it now accounts for well over 15% of GDP. Everybody's in it. We had the end of Glass-Steagall. And so, the guy who used to buy 500 shares of IBM for you now potentially is selling you stock, may want to be concerned about other issues in the insurance space or in the banking space, whatever the case may be. So value proposition, in my mind, is linked to all the other things an advisor can do for a client beyond simply investment management. But what is your sense, Debbie, before we dive in a little more deeper, about what what does the value proposition mean? What does it mean to you? And then how does that translate into you communicating with your clients about it?
Yeah, so I think part of it is, like you're saying, the communication aspect. There's a real sort of execution gap there. What goes on behind the curtain, right? And then I think there's some advisors who, quite honestly, aren't really doing enough for their clients and aren't able to really then justify a 1% AUM fee when basically what they're doing is this flurry of activity once or twice a year around a client meeting. Of course, they're going to feel uncomfortable charging or should feel uncomfortable charging 1% of AUM when they're really not working for that client the way they should be, right? And so to me, the value proposition for these clients is my goal is to make your life easier. My goal is to make a difference in your life, like a meaningful difference in your life. So in the broadest way possible, that's how I view my role. And then I'm willing to wear a number of different hats to accomplish that role because, everybody's needs are different. So I'll just put it there to just stop.
Yeah. I over the years, as I've observed advisors and their practices, the ones that appear to be the most successful, have either explicitly or implicitly, adopted this. I am my client's CFO. Not to the degree that some other CFOs who are in the news now, not like that, but that there is some. But I mean, that is the value proposition to me, because this stuff, of course, it's hugely complicated. And while there are, the DIYers out there, I don't want to spend all my time learning the ins and outs of every last little thing that is important to my financial life and my family's financial life. To me, that is the role of the advisor, who is both going to be educating clients about this stuff, but actually executing on these things. And the education comes through in terms of, translating these broad notions of, being safe and secure, being smart and responsible about your financial life into very explicit things that I think show up in terms of this question of what are the types of services that the advisor actually handles for the clients. Because I think a lot of people still come to the relationship nonetheless with this notion of an investment lens. Yes, they know that there's the financial planning stuff and the advisor talks these things up. But the truth of the matter is, especially with defending your AUM fee pressure, it really is a matter of acting like your client's CFO. But why do you think the average client still is not aware of all the services that advisors actually can deliver for them?
Well, I mean, honestly, that's on the advisor. And it's like I'm saying before, there's a communication issue, right? There's an execution gap. So to me, there's a few ways that you address that. First of all, in the onboarding process, you need to do a very good job of communicating to the prospect and then client what are the services that you offer. So for example, at Taylor Financial Group, we've created literally there are 60 different services. We call it the financial futures planning chart, the financial futures chart. And we basically take the different services and we break them into 6 categories, like tax planning, retirement, investment management. So that's 4 of them. Okay. But it's 6. And then under each of those 6 categories, there's literally anywhere from like 6 to 10 specific services that are provided. Okay. And so we give that to clients very early on, before they're even clients, in the discovery process. So you want to start educating them from the very, very beginning about these are all the things we do. Long-term care insurance. Oh, gee, I didn't know you did that. Cash flow budgeting. Gee, I didn't know you did that. Right. And particularly folks who've been either self-directed, they don't know what they don't know. So for example, before, Sean, you were saying, I don't want to spend all this time researching, trying to figure out every last thing. I mean, you can be super smart. I mean, we have clients who are MIT engineers, right? They're trying to do Social Security analysis on a spreadsheet that they've created. And I literally laugh in their face. I'm like, there is special software for this. You can't create a spreadsheet for Social Security claiming strategies. So people don't know what they don't know. And it's not a function of how intelligent you are. We have doctors, we have engineers. It's not about being smart. It's that, I spend 8 hours a day doing this, 12 hours a day doing this. How are you supposed to catch up to that, right? In a weekend of learning, right? So part of it is in the discovery process. When you're meeting with those prospects, you want to be educating them right up front. And of course, that helps you with the fee discussion, which I'm sure we're going to get to in a little while. Okay. Then with your existing clients, right? Because you're like, okay, Debbie, thanks for that help. But what about my existing clients? Well, again, always be closing, right? Always be selling. Every time I walk out of a meeting, my goal is that client says, thank God I have Debbie Taylor on my team, right? So you always need to be caring and nurturing and feeding these existing clients. And so that's then in your weekly newsletter. That's in your monthly planning letter. That's in your monthly or quarterly webinars or your weekly office hours. These are all things that we do for our clients. And during those sessions, and of course, during your regular meetings, you want to then always be talking about these other services that you're providing, these other needs that those clients might have, that they don't even put two and two together and say, hey, I've got this problem and Debbie can help me with it, right? That's on you, educating them and sharing with them everything that you do. So I'll just leave it there for a second.
Yeah. That reminds me of, and I'm curious to know from advisors out there who may be listening, the degree to which you've had an experience where a client says, oh, I didn't know you did that. And the first half of the conversation might have been about them discussing doing business with somebody else because it was in their view peripheral, and maybe all of a sudden there's some insurance guy in town and they're doing their long-term care insurance, or started the process when they suddenly realize or discover, oh, wait, my advisor actually does that kind of thing. So I guess if you ever had that experience where your clients are saying, gee, I didn't know you did that, and that is an indication that there may be an issue with your client ramp up or your regular communication system. And what are the kinds of things, though, that you think, of course, there's also the technology piece. We'll get into that in a minute. But what are the kinds of services that you think advisors probably ought to be offering to their clients because it does fit into the broad, chief financial officer for your clients' lives, and that it's outside the, traditional investment piece? What are the sorts of things are we thinking there that advisors should be looking to add, services they should be looking to add, that actually helps their clients and isn't necessarily a huge lift for the advisor over the long term, but is really sort of important in having it as a service that can be used to tacitly support your, battle fee compression?
Yeah. So first and foremost is planning. Okay. Every valued client should have a plan. And I will tell you that once we started doing good plans for our clients and pulling those plans out when we had inflection points or had discussions about buying a second home in Naples or helping a grandkid go to college, whatever, once we sort of incorporated planning into just about everything we do, there's no more of, gee, Debbie, I didn't think you did that. Oh, I went to this other guy. Because what happens is if you have a good plan, then you are opening the door to all of those other conversations. And so clients come out knowing, oh, she does offer long-term care insurance because she just talked to me about that. Oh, she offers life insurance because she just talked to me about that. And then they're not going elsewhere. And so there's a couple reasons then we want to do these plans. First of all, it's the right thing for our clients. Okay. Is years ago, you charged 1% of AUM and all you did was investment management. And look, we didn't know any better, right? All right. We'll defend ourselves, right? Give ourselves the benefit of the doubt. We didn't know any better. I'm saying we as a profession. And in defense, investment management was a little bit more difficult to do back then because we didn't have the technology, right? So I'm going back 10 or 20 years, right? Now we've evolved. And the investment management is, generally speaking, a little bit easier, a little bit streamlined. We have technology, but also we have technology that helps us in a whole host of other areas. And we would be remiss then, I believe, if these clients come to you, they trust you with your life savings, and you're like, cherry picking the things you're going to do for them, knowing full well in the back of your mind that you should be talking to them about tax planning and you should be doing financial planning for them. And so there's a lot of reasons we need to do this. First of all, it's the right thing. And if you want to defend that fee and not have to negotiate, and you want to protect your client retention, then you need to be doing more of the investment management, and you need to be doing more than just waiting for a meeting to service this client. I don't think there's anything that gets me more upset than when I hear an advisor, like if I'm doing like a panel call with other advisors, and every once in a while, someone on my team will say this, but then I take their head off and then they never say it again, is I don't think there's anything worse for this profession, worse for you, than waiting for the meeting to do the thing. Okay. Because that's why your clients don't want to stay with you. And that's why they don't want to pay you 1% of AUM, because they know that the services they're going to get are only once or twice a year. And who wants to pay $10,000 or $20,000 to be serviced once or twice a year? Okay. I mean, that's a ripoff. And I know I'm oversimplifying it, but I think you're getting the point. And so the one thing then you need to do for these clients is you need to do planning, and you need to do planning like it matters, right? Not planning like is what I call it, but you need to do planning like it matters. And if you really commit yourself to doing the planning with these clients, you're going to cover all these other areas. And all the data shows that when you do this cross-selling, when a client buys, several products or services from you, that they are going to be stickier. You are going to have higher retention. It does create loyalty. And then the whole ecosystem works very well. So those are my thoughts.
Yeah. I wanted to come back to this broad question of insurance, because, again, a pretty Glass-Steagall, it was brokerage, insurance, and banking, 3 separate areas. Now, of course, people can be in all those places. And you mentioned long-term care and life insurance. Also, frankly, for a lot of advisors, annuities are part of their toolkit as well. But it means becoming licensed and putting in a little bit of time to be able to sell those products, right? How did that evolve within your practice?
Yeah, I know. So there's philosophically some differences in how to approach this, right? So we might have some folks on the phone who are RIA only, and they're not accepting commissions, they're not selling insurance. And I understand that approach, and I do respect that approach. My thinking is that I do want to be a one-stop shop. And honestly, I don't trust anyone as much as I trust myself. And so if I send them out to the life insurance guy or whatever, God knows what they're coming back with. And so I got fully licensed very, very early on in my career, not because it's a huge source of revenue for us. We literally 95% of our revenue is fee-based. It's literally 95%. So I'm not making any game-changing money. But when I do the plan and I do see that there is a gap and I do see that we need life insurance, and I am a big believer in long-term care insurance, then I want to be the one to have that conversation responsibly within the context of the plan and then make the recommendations, again, in a very responsible way. And that goes for annuities as well.
Right. Now, of course, there still needs to be, advisors can't do everything. Like, we've talked about Medicare before, which is, with horse's mouth, we have Savvy Medicare. It's largely designed for advisors, for them to be able to be informed about the topic so they can speak knowledgeably to their clients. But getting into the weeds on that one is a challenge. Now, that is one that, how have you dealt with that over the years?
Yeah, and so you're right. I try between myself and my team to really absorb and get our arms around as much as possible. Okay. Having said that, there are some areas where the learning curve is so great that I do believe it would be a disservice to the clients to try to keep it in-house. And there's really 3 areas that we outsource. So just health insurance, purchasing health insurance, because I am licensed to do that. Technically, I could. So, whether it's group life insurance for business, individual, whatever. The Medicare, I've also outsourced. And so anytime we send out actually proactively to our clients, hey, you're turning 65. Hey, it's open enrollment season again. That goes to all of our clients. And so we've outsourced Medicare because Medicare is constantly changing. It's very dynamic. You need to be certified every single year for that. And I just don't have the bandwidth for that. And I think it would be a disservice. And then the third area that we really aren't great at, full disclosure, is the college planning. And I know that Horse's Mouth, has a lot of support in that area. And I think that's great. It's just that my clientele, literally the average age is like 65. It's just
Mostly
not,
past that.
it's just not our book. Okay. But if we had, a lot of families, middle class, absolutely, then I'd be all over that. So I know enough to high level discuss it with the grandparents, basically. Okay. And so that's like a niche within the niche, very basic. So yeah, at times you cannot do everything on your own. But yes.
Right. So in your workshop, which will be July 19th to the 22nd, the new normal practice management workshop, I believe in one segment, you're tell people the story of how you started to show all the different services that you offer. You were mentioning that before, and I think you put it up on your website. You want to tell us a little bit about the creation of it's kind of like a Chinese menu type thing. And I think your staff was even giving you a little bit of static about that at some point over the years.
Yeah, I mean, so we had that experience that you opened with in that some of our clients were like, "Oh, I'm talking to a broker about long-term care insurance." I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, we do that here." And so that had happened to me years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago. And I'm like, well, I got to deal with this. And so we've created a number of pieces because to me, a picture's worth 1,000 words. And one of the things I talk about is, unfortunately, when somebody hires us, I cannot take them out back to my widget factory to show them how beautiful our widget manufacturing is. Okay. And it's very frustrating as somebody who provides services. I wish I had a widget factory, but I don't. And so what I've done in place of that is create a number of, let's say, educational pieces, one-page handouts, whatever you call them. And again, from the very beginning in the discovery process, we use these pieces to educate these prospects, because then it helps us when that fee conversation comes up and they think they can negotiate us. And it helps to then obviously support, you know, the 1% fee that we basically charge. And so we have a few points. So one of them, like you talked about, is the financial futures planning chart. Like I said, it has the eight categories on top, and then the drop down of the 6 to 10 services within each. Okay, so like it'll be tax planning, and then under tax planning it'll be like, oh, tax loss harvesting and tax gain harvesting, asset location, you know, all that will be there. Okay, and so that's one piece we use, and we still use that. A lot of people copy it, whatever. And then there's a few other pieces that I've developed along these lines. So one of the other ones is the 3-lane highway, which if I had to bring one piece to a desert island, it would be the 3-lane highway. And this is geared towards our niche, which is, of course, the tax planning, distribution planning, large retirement accounts, things like that. And so the 3-lane highway, though, and again, you could use this or adapt it for your own practice, but the 3-lane highway, and this is all on my website and stuff, is the 1 lane is investment management, which everybody's in. Okay. The middle lane is retirement and financial planning, which everybody should be in, but they're not. And then the right lane, just imagine 3 lanes, and the right lane is tax planning and retirement distribution planning. Okay. And so I literally show them this 3-lane graphic, and it's written in the 3 lanes. And I basically say, Mr. and Mrs. Prospect, right now you're in the left lane here, investment management. That's with your current broker. That's on your own. That's a very crowded lane. And of course you're in that lane, and you probably did pretty well for yourself with the 11-year bull market. But now you got this middle lane with the retirement and financial planning. And this is a critical lane for anybody with any kind of wealth. And you need to have somebody who can service you in this lane. And then this right lane is tax planning and retirement distribution planning. And you, with your $1 or $2 million IRA, you definitely need this lane as well. And you need an advisor that can go across all 3 lanes. And that's what we do. And so that piece is incredibly powerful. And I tell you this because literally the way we've done the piece may be helpful to you, but if it's not, think about your practice, think about what you're offering and how you can help visualize that for the client, because the picture is worth 1,000 words, because you don't have the widget factory out back. So you need to help the client visualize what you're doing for them and how it can make a difference in their life.
Yeah, that's good. And those are great metaphors. I also think that it may be a challenge for some, and I'd like to see more advisors do this, especially around this topic of value proposition. It's like, how do we knit all that together at a more emotional level? So we've been discussing these things in, sort of very concrete terms: investment management, retirement planning, financial planning and retirement planning, and then, taxes and distribution. Those are your 3 lanes, right? Mm-hmm. But I'm interested more in advisors. I mean, I think those things are great, and I would never say you shouldn't be discussing them or anything remotely close to that. But it's like, what sort of umbrella? When we speak to clients, I've just been looking at a lot of research, and I think some of you out there are familiar with this idea that people make their decisions emotionally, and then come to justify these emotion-based decisions rationally. So you've just laid down the rational markers for working with Debbie Taylor. But to me, the emotional piece, the broader emotional piece, is the public's desire to be financially secure.
I got you, Sean, on this. So then the next step, okay?
Yeah.
And
Okay.
this is where the horse's mouth is so helpful, because I literally don't go anywhere without this. Literally,
Mhm.
I have like 10 copies and they're everywhere I go. Okay. So you're right. That's sort of the rational part. And it's theoretical and it's conceptual, and anyone can sort of say that, right? I mean, you guys can print that piece off my website and say that, right?
Right.
So you're right. We got to drive it home. So then I have this because it's my little cheat sheet, because I can't remember all these numbers, right? And so I say, all right, so let me walk you through this, and Mr. and Mrs. Prospect. And let me show you how this thing's going to work, because right now the government is hoping that you don't talk to somebody like me. And so I say, so let me explain to you, if you do not work with somebody like me, what is going to happen down the road. And I call this the ghost of Christmas future. Okay. So I say, okay, so you've got this $2 million IRA. And so at age 72, you're going to have $100,000 of distributions that have to come out, RMDs, right? Let me just write this down. And then you've got some of this other income here, whatever it is. Okay. So then right now, married filing joint, your income is like, I'm just picking random numbers here. Your income's like $250,000. We're just going to go with that. And right now, under current tax laws, and you're at a 24% marginal rate. And so you're saying to me, gee, Debbie, that's not so bad. I'm okay with 24%, right? Not a big deal. But let me explain to you what happens when you don't do this tax planning, when you don't have an advisor who's in that right-hand lane. Is one of you is going to pass, okay? And this is called the widow's penalty. And nobody talks to you about the widow's penalty. So then you're going to have to be filing single. And let's assume that's Mrs. Prospect over here, right? So now Mrs. Prospect has $250,000 of income, because she's going to take all the IRAs. She'll drop off one of the Social Securities. It'll be the lesser amount. So 90% of your income is basically going to stay the same. So now you've got all this income and you've lived within your means, right? Because you're trying to be smart, because you want to pass this money on to your children, right? And make sure that Mrs. Prospect has enough to live off of. So now at $250,000 a year, Mrs. Prospect is filing single, and now she's in the 35% tax bracket. So now by doing nothing, your wife is going to end up paying 10%, being 10% higher tax bracket than you were married filing joint. Now at this point, she's looking at him and she's thinking, I thought you had this covered. I thought you had this covered. Okay, that's what she's saying. She's either saying it or her eyes are telling them, like, what the F, you had this covered, right? So then I'm like, but it gets worse. Not only will she be at the 35% tax bracket, and by the way, Mr. and Mrs. Prospect, you realize this is under current tax rates. You realize that if Biden has his way, some of this will be going up. And even if Biden doesn't have his way, the TCJA expires in a couple of years. It's right around the corner. And then these tax rates are going to go up again to the former tax rates. Okay. So best case scenario, you're at 35%. She's paying 10% more in taxes, but it gets even better. That Medicare IRMA surcharge that we were just talking about, that's totally irritating to you. Do you realize that she's going to pay more as single than the two of you as joint? That's impossible. Those are premiums. Yep. Okay. But at $250,000, she's at single. And now when you guys were joint, you were at $300 a month, $350 a month. And now at single, she's going to be at $550 a month. So she's going to pay almost $3,000 more in Medicare IRMA surcharges. Huh? And she's looking at him again. I thought you had that covered. He's like, what the F? I had no idea about any of this. I said, but then it gets better. You two have lived well within your means, because that's how you've accumulated all this money. And that's fantastic. But the government is waiting at the finish line to tax you. So even if all this stuff doesn't get to you, then you've got the Secure Act and that $2 million IRA, which by the time the second of you passes will be worth maybe $4 or $5 million. And now little Susie, because you only have one child, little Susie's got to take out that $4 or $5 million over 10 years. And now all that hard work, all those years of you living with your means, all of that effort you have made, and you think you're passing $4 or $5 million onto Susie, and she's literally only going to get half that, because she's got to pull that all out within 10 years. And that is absolutely going to push her into the top tax bracket. And these are the things that are going to happen if you don't work with somebody like me. Is that emotional enough, Sean? Because I tell you right now, by the time I'm through with that, they are closing me. They are literally saying to me, what are the next steps, Debbie?
Yep. So you touched upon tax planning there, which of course I think when we address this issue of value proposition and services to be offering clients, we've been talking about this for a few years now, because we've entered this period of tax chaos. where, the tax code was changed in 2017, and then again in 2018 or 2019, and then we had the pandemic, and there were more changes, and now Biden's here, and there's even more changes. And I think when we started talking about this topic more in depth back in 2017, there had been a sense that, taxes was kind of a sleepy thing. Bush during the Gulf War made some changes, and the second Gulf War, and then Clinton made some changes, and the other Bush made some changes, but they were all small. But now we've been getting a lot of these big changes, quite a lot, and of course it's happening, like you said, at the end of a long bull market, with the wealthiest generation in the history of the country going through retirement and starting to have to deal with issues like, how will we, turn our nest egg into some flow of monthly income? How long, how much can we take out? What is the tax situation? And so the value proposition for advisors, there's just like a very strong case now for them to be way more involved with taxes. So can you just talk a little bit about how you have folded that in as part of really kind of the lead of your value proposition when you're discussing, when you're talking with clients?
Yeah. So obviously I've been a CPA now for 30 years, and my father was a CPA, and a lot of these things we're talking about, I was doing them in some, more rudimentary way, because of course we didn't have the technology, the software. But, I always thought it was an important addition to my value proposition, the fact that I was a CPA. Nobody really cared. Okay. Nobody really cared up until like 4 or 5 years ago. And then the TCJA passed at the end of 2017, the Secure Act 2019. And then over the last 2 years, this tax chaos where now taxes are just front and center. It's, polarizing issue, and it's everywhere, right? And it's just constantly changing. And so now it is absolutely what I lead with. Everybody is listening. And so we have incorporated this as basically our specialty. It's all over our website, the acronym SMART, Save More After Retirement Taxes. So it's everywhere you go. It's the key part of my approach talk. This is who we are, and this is what we do. And our business has never grown as quickly as it has over these last 2 or 3 years because of this tax niche, and because these high net worth clients who after this bull market are sitting on all this money, and it's like this perfect storm for them because they made all this money and now the government wants to tax it all, and it's all happening now. Right. And so it wasn't like this 5 years ago, because the bull market, we were still in the middle of the bull market and we didn't have all the tax law changes. So truly, it is a perfect storm that is just hitting us now. And so everything we do is geared towards this tax planning, tax niche, large retirement accounts, distribution planning. Everything we do is geared towards that. And it's a winner. It's a winner.
Yeah. Just a small aside, I monitor a number of retirement related private Facebook groups just to kind of see, what people are out there talking about. And just this morning, I think there's one called Retirement and Taxes. And turns out there's a CPA who's in the group, and he's actually, it was really interesting. I know you'll love this. He was saying two things to the group. One, I'm ready to quit this business right now because my clients over the last few years just have become so angry. And the other point he was telling the group is, you know what, I've been a CPA all these years and I don't really know that much about retirement and taxes.
Okay.
So that part was funny. But I was curious about his observation about anger in taxes, because now you are dealing more with you're dealing with all your clients about taxes. Is he onto anything there? Or is that just his? It's like, we don't want to have the anger-filled conversations with our clients.
No,
are you seeing or experiencing that at all?
Oh, the guy's a loser. No, here's the problem. Okay. Here's the problem is his clients are angry because he's not helping them. Okay. So yeah, our clients are coming, and sure, they're a little frustrated, right? Particularly when, I walk them through this, right? And whether it's clients or prospects, everybody is like, oh, right. But at the end of the day, people are angry because they feel powerless, because they feel like they don't have a plan or a path forward. I come and I give them a path forward. And I say, look, we're going to do this. I got your back on this. I read about this stuff every single day, and I'm going to do everything I can for you. And they're like, thank God, Debbie. Thank God, because I don't even know where to turn. So this guy is a total loser. He has an opportunity here to help his clients to make a ton of money, win all the way around. But he's like a typical tax preparer. He's a typical tax preparer, which is why they need us, right? Why they need us.
Right, right. So Doug, I think we have some comments. I don't know if we have any questions, but can you share with Debbie some observations or something that she might want to reflect back on?
Yeah, well, so first of all, both Cliff and Jim at the beginning of the stream said that no, they think their clients just don't know, have no idea all the things that they do for them.
All the services there.
Yeah, so
right.
Thank you guys for letting us know that. And let's see, so Kathy has a couple of comments. She said,
hang on one second. I want to comment. Hold on. I want to comment on that thing about people knowing. And Debbie's mentioned it a little bit of communications, but I mean, at Horse's Mouth, we go to great pains. Devin Kropp in the Advisor Client Program literally creates a year-long marketing plan for any advisor in that program. She tees up the exact things you need to do, the very specific actions with the materials that have been reviewed by FINRA to share with your clients. And one of the things that she does, what Debbie does as well, I know, is the marketing plan throughout the year. Each month has a theme. Okay. Each month has a theme, and it's touching on all these different topics, and most of them are outside of investment management. So to the degree that your clients are paying attention to your communications, or I should say, we're teeing up an opportunity for you to communicate directly with your clients on a regular basis on all these different services, in essence, that you should be educating them on and providing them to your clients for, because they're smart financial planning that you should be doing with them. So,
and we use that, by the way. Horse's Mouth does an excellent job every month teeing it up. You guys have the conference calls. You tell us what pieces to be sending out. And my team looks at that every single month. And we use a number of those resources, despite the fact that I have people whose sole job is supposed to be, I call it messaging and communications, not marketing. But their sole mission is supposed to be that. But they know to go every month to Horse's Mouth and pull out some of those things. So that's excellent. So yeah.
But by the way, the reason we do it is because, way back when the data came out that the more advisors communicated with their clients about these things, the better they did with their clients. So it's like, okay, we got to create this thing so that advisors are communicating every month.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a no-brainer, right? So, all right. So with Kathy, then Doug, I'll step in here, is Kathy's talking about some of the value add with estate planning. And so again, this is part of, if you think about the financial futures chart, right, the categories, one of them is estate planning, legacy, gifting, right, that whole category. And one of the things that we are starting to use now is Vanilla, which is a software program that helps to analyze the estate planning documents and then creates flow charts and sort of the waterfall, like if this, then this, and the trustee, the successor trustee. And so we have been tracking that for a while. We had to get it approved through our compliance department, and we are starting to use Vanilla as a value add in that area. And so again, these are all the areas you want to get into, because your point is well taken, Kathy, is the estate planning attorneys, they just want to draft. And as far as they're concerned, the more trust, the better, because they can draft more. But then we're the ones that have to implement and execute, right? They ride off into the sunset. And now we're the ones with the extra checking accounts and the compliance and the tax returns. And so we basically keep those estate planning attorneys in line. Is I will set the clients up with one. I will make sure the fees are reasonable. I'll make sure that they don't get things that they don't need, because those people come in and it's very transactional, and you're the one that really knows the client and knows what they need. So this is another great example of how you can make a difference in your clients' lives. And we do that as well.
Yeah. And of course, that's important for clients at all phases of life, whether they're young and getting started, they're building a family, they're into the college years, or they're into the, go retirement years. Looping back to the estate plan and just making sure that everything is still in place and everything makes sense, and looking at all the beneficiary forms and looking at the healthcare directives and the power of attorney and the wills and all that sort of stuff. I mean, that is hugely valuable, because there's nothing worse, would be nothing worse than there being a glaring mistake and then tragedy strikes and the advisors left partly, looking bad because they weren't on top of something being changed. And all of a sudden, the old IRA is going to the, divorce to the, the ex-wife or something
Yep.
like that. I mean,
No,
just
of course.
just at a minimum, not to mention a lot more complicated stuff.
Absolutely. There are no,
yeah, go ahead.
sorry, go on, Sean.
Okay, go ahead, Debbie.
I was saying there are no other questions on
Yeah,
there.
right. All right, Debbie. So, well, any other final things to think about? That vanilla stuff is very interesting. And of course, we want to invite everybody to be look to attend Debbie's workshop, July 19th to the 22nd. It'll be noon to 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9 to noon out on the West Coast. It's a great way to spend 4 days with Debbie, get deep inside of her business, her practice management strategies, her messaging, her marketing, the technology. It's a fantastic opportunity. And you can go to horsesmouth.com/new normal, one word, to learn more about Debbie's upcoming practice management workshop.
I just have one closing thought,
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things we had talked about were fees and services and the fact that we don't have a widget factory out back.
Right.
And so one of the things that we had internally and sort of a rough outline of that we were sharing with clients, and now we're really sort of going big with it, is this quarterly service calendar. And so this is the way, and I've been talking about this for years, right? If you charge evergreen fees, you should provide evergreen service, right? It's essentially both sides of the ledger should match up, okay? And I have felt very passionate about this for years. And so we had, again, a rudimentary approach to it. But now that we've built out the team, I'm ready to really sort of finalize this whole concept. And so basically, we've created a quarterly service calendar for the things that we're doing every single quarter for these clients. And we have one internally, which of course has all the different steps and the checklist associated with it. And then one that's going to be shared with prospects during the discovery phase. And then of course shared with clients so that they see behind the scenes all the things we're doing. And some of it is like reviewing the estate plan, reviewing beneficiary designations, reviewing the tax returns, right? But all these things, not waiting for the client to call and ask about it, not waiting for the disaster and then you're reacting, not waiting for the meeting, because don't get me going on that, right? But literally have a proactive approach, like it's Q1, these are the things we review in Q1. And so that is a great way to protect that fee and justify that fee. So when a client says, well, what are you doing for 1% a year? You're like, here you go.
Here's the Evergreen Services. Yeah, that's great. That's brilliant.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
That's brilliant. I love that.
Yeah.
Okay, folks. Well, that'll be yet another thing Debbie, I'm sure, will be covering in our workshop.
Yes, in a lot of detail.
And yeah, I mean, it makes sense because, again, I mean, just to close out, no one asked the question, but it does come up. It's like, well, what do you do if a client wants to negotiate fees? And how do you respond to that in a way that supports what you're doing? And I think you're saying you're able to show them all the things we're doing 4 times a year, in addition to the meetings, is you have all these client service items you're hitting.
I don't negotiate the fees anymore. I tell them my fee is the average fee. It's not the highest and it's not the lowest. It is the average fee. And I tell them, and I see the data on this. So what I'm telling you is true. Okay. But you will not find anyone who's providing this level of service for the fees that we are charging. So we do not negotiate our fees.
Yeah. Well, good. There you go, everybody. Have a great 4th of July weekend and stay safe. Yes. And we'll be back.
Workshop.
We'll be back. Come to the workshop, and we'll be back with Building a Better Business series as we move on through the month of July. So thanks, everybody. Take care.
Thank you.